So VAR is there to spot, obviously, howlers.
Yeah.
They did the opposite. The referee had got it right. Yeah. And then they made the huge howler. Maybe the answer to this, Alan, maybe the answer to VAR is to then have another VAR that looks at the VAR who's already looked at the referee's decision. I mean, where does it end? Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with me, Gary and Micah, Alan Shearer, and soon to be, shall we say, Micah Richards, because things are a little bit different today, but that's the beauty of podcasts. You can do what you want. Micah is away working in the US this week and is obviously therefore on a different time zone to the rest of us. So he is going to be joining me for the second half of the show. But Alan's got to disappear for something else. But, you know, we make these things happen regardless. That's the magic. I've got Alan with me now, though, and we're going to be answering the best of your questions throughout today's episodes. But, Alan, this is the day after the night before because we're recording this on a Wednesday. And I think it's safe to say that Newcastle were robbed last night, Al. I mean, Gorb, you went very quiet on our group chat apart from one endless rant, with good reason, I think.
Gaz, you know I like a little good swear now and again. That was an absolute disgrace. That's as polite as I can be.
I have to agree with you. I mean, I can't work out quite how anyone could see that was a penalty. It quite clearly came off his leg first, flicked his elbow, and it was almost as though maybe because it was right at the end of the game, they've been getting a lot of stick from the supporters in Paris, and whether they were influenced in that, I don't know. But this is the guy that was getting all the plaudits, and the VAR guy as well, in the World Cup final. I understand though, Alan, you've been in touch with UEFA this morning.
Yeah, I spoke to them this morning, and to be fair, they were as angry as what we were. They were disappointed as what we were in the decision, and they'd said that the referee and the VAR knew straight away after the game they'd made a huge error and they would no longer be involved in the games this evening or in the next round of the games, which are in 2 weeks' time. They'll be off those games as well. So, but they won't be commenting, and it was okay for me to say that, so that's fine. But I think that tells you how bad a decision it was for them to do that straight away. I mean, honestly, up until then, I thought the referee was having a really good game, and I get it was a really hostile atmosphere.
He could have possibly given a penalty 20 minutes. I think they might have got, if he'd have given it, they certainly wouldn't have turned it over. But you could argue that. But he was standing up and making the right decisions, as he did, confidently in the World Cup final. And then what was it, 98 minutes? And I mean,
but this is what angers everyone, right? Is that you've got one of the best referees there is. You've got the best VAR. You've got the team that worked in the World Cup final, who obviously can handle pressure, can handle hostile atmospheres. And you've also got an assistant VAR, as we know. So it's gone through 3 of the best people. So the VAR has then said, okay, you need to come and have a look at this. Then for the referee to say, yeah, you know what, I've made an absolute howler there. That's a clear penalty. I got it completely wrong. I mean, it is staggering that these experienced so-called great officials can go through 3 people and they still all get it wrong. I get human error, I get all that, and it would have been easier if it was just one referee to make that mistake and then the on-field, and you don't look at VAR and you say, okay, everyone makes mistakes. But for it to go through 2 or 3 people of that standard and they all still come to the same conclusion, it baffles me. And everyone knows that they've got it wrong and they've messed up, but how can 3 get it wrong?
What I found particularly baffling, I think, is this constant thing when referees are now sent to the monitors and and they always, bar the very, very occasional example, always go with what VAR said. It's almost like they're putting the words into their head. By the time they get there, and then obviously the guy at the other end's going, yes, he's got it. Look, his arm's in the funny position. Whatever he's saying to him, we don't know because we don't share that conversation on the field, which is another problem, I think, with VAR. And the problem also, of course, is that everyone agrees that was a mistake and the referees are being punished and stuff. But the ramifications for Newcastle, it doesn't help. You know, they've now got in a position where they would have been strong favourites to qualify to being pretty much rank outsiders to qualify. Yeah. I mean, that's the difference, isn't it? I mean, huge.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. The ramifications are incredible financially for the players. The players and staff work their nuts off last season to get into this position. They've been put in a really, really difficult group, which is a great group for the fans and for the football club. They've done unbelievably well to get in that position, and then to find themselves now in the position that's out of their hands. So it might not be enough to win against Milan in 2 weeks' time to get them through to the next round. I mean, you're talking millions and millions of pounds on players' careers here. That for three people, basically, for the VAR assistant, for the VAR, and then for the referee, for all of them to make that huge error is just not acceptable.
No, it's staggering, really. Yeah. It's funny though. I saw a few posts this morning on social media, and one of them was from a journalist. He's a brilliant writer actually, but he said, "Oh, for crying out loud, PSG had an XG of something like 4.8 and everyone's going on about this decision." I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, this is football. It's not really for, I don't think, the people in the referee and VAR to reward PSG for missing chances.
No, it's when I pressed send on my tweet last night, I just pressed send and then I didn't look again until later on, about 12 hours later, because I know what's happening. As soon as you go with rival clubs and fans and what have you, expect to get criticised, but that's the nature of the beast. But it was, I think everyone will accept it. I mean, it was a huge error, and it was a disgraceful decision that they made last night. It was terrible.
It's not only a huge error, but it's doing the absolute opposite of what VAR is supposed to do. So VAR is there to spot, obviously, howlers, huge errors, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But in this case, they did the opposite. The referee got it right. Yeah. And then they made the huge howler. Maybe the answer to this, Alan, maybe the answer to VAR is to then have another VAR that looks at the VAR who's already looked at the referee's decision. I mean, where does it end? I can understand why I think huge numbers of people have come to the, I think, position now where they just would like to can it, and I think particularly fans in the stadium, but it ain't gonna happen.
We discuss and the referees of this and that and everything else, but I mean, let's look at it in a way where they are actually being put in a really, really difficult position, the referees, because the lawmakers, who are not the referees, who maybe are the ex-referees and who are in charge, who we know about, they're making it impossible for these guys to make decisions. With the handball law, how long have we been saying the handball law is a complete and utter shambles? They have gone around the houses, left, right, straight, trying to find all these different things about proximity, natural, unnatural. They have made such a mess of that whole law that they're making it really, really difficult. In fact, they're making it impossible for some of these referees to make the correct decision.
And I think what happens then, it gets so so complicated that by the time the referee suddenly has to deal, and they're going, which clause is this one under? I mean, if you actually read the handball law, which I've done many times now, as we all have, and it's like pages of the stuff, and it's absurd.
They had a review of the handball law did UEFA back in April or May and said, if it hits another part of your body and deflects up onto your arm, then it shouldn't be a penalty. I mean, how clear was that? If that's not as clear as you're going to get last night to say you can't award a penalty for that. There was one earlier in the game where it hit Lewis Miley's arm and it was almost identical. And he said, no penalty, sticking with his decision.
That was actually more of it wasn't a penalty, I want to say first, but that was closer to being a penalty than the one in the final minute, that's for sure, because it didn't strike another body part before he got him. But it's frustrating, and hopefully we'll just go.
He crumbled.
Yeah, he did.
It's a good job you didn't come to me to do it last night after the game, because you would have got a few more Fs and Bs and Cs and everything. I was that angry.
I sort of wish we had in some way. Let's change the subject. To getting a few of the questions in, and I think a lot of people's questions would have been along those lines this morning. Anyway, right, let's start with Jack Warren. As a Leeds fan, Alan used to love playing us because he'd score against us all the time. I think Alan's mentioned that once or twice. Was there a certain club you guys enjoyed playing against, whether it be because you always played well or enjoyed the atmosphere or occasion? Love the podcast. Best in the game. Keep it up. Very
nice.
kind.
It's good.
Thank you very much.
Obviously Leeds is one, but I always used to love going to Anfield as well, because I loved the ground. I think I loved the atmosphere, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I always felt you got a little bit more respect as a player. If you were a half-decent player, you got a little bit more respect at Anfield than you did in a lot of grounds. I mean, they're an incredible football club, but you very rarely did you come away from Anfield with anything. But I always enjoyed it just because it's got a special atmosphere.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. I love going to Anfield, particularly when I was at Everton.
I was going to say, did you score a few there times?
We won 2-0 there. I scored in that game. A little dink over Grobbelaar as he came out, and it was a joyous moment. But I'd actually, funnily enough, I think you do look forward to going to grounds where you've had a bit of joy and a bit of success. And mine was actually Selhurst Park.
Right.
And not just against Crystal Palace. I scored there against 3 different teams. I scored against Charlton when they played there for a little while. And I also scored against Wimbledon when in fact, I got 4 in that game. So I think I also scored an overhead kick at Selhurst Park way back when, if my memory serves me right.
Really?
Not like Garnacho's. Probably close in and just a little boom scoopy back thing. But yeah, it was a happy hunting ground. So
there you go.
Selhurst Park for me.
You were delighted when Wimbledon moved there, then, weren't you? When 2 or 3 teams were going to play there.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I remember walking back to the halfway line, having scored my 4th goal. You know that Wimbledon, they're horrible, that lot. And they was get in the mixer. Yeah, we'll go. You don't like it. And I for some inexplicable reason, I got brave after I'd scored the 4th goal and said, "Where's your mixer now, boys?"
Love it.
And then I ran down the dressing room at the end of the game.
I was going to say,
Get out of the way. I've got one from someone called So Many Giraffes, which is a fabulous name. He's not going to stick his neck out, is he? Sorry. Oh, dear. With the football calendar getting busier and players moaning about playing too much football, do you think they will get rid of the League Cup? Personally, I wouldn't, but I would like to see the Championship, League One and League Two clubs playing in it and no Premier League clubs, which is an interesting idea. I think there's already competitions for clubs outside the Premier League. I mean, they've lost it in 1 or 2 other countries. In Spain, they have one cup competition. I'd certainly drop the 2-legged semi-finals. I don't think there's if you've got one of the big teams and you invariably have it, that the last thing they need is 2 more games in midweek when they're competing possibly in the Champions League. But I don't know, it's also a chance though for teams to win a trophy. Perhaps it might even be Newcastle this season, Alan, and if that wasn't there, what do you think? No,
I wouldn't get rid of it at all. I would keep it, and I'd do exactly the same as you. I think we accept and understand that it's the the fourth choice of the bigger clubs who are in Europe and got the league and got the FA Cup and everything else. But it's also a chance, for the bigger clubs to play their squad. And I think that's really important. But yeah, no two-legged ties semi-final. But I would without doubt keep it. I mean, Newcastle last year had a great run, got all the way to the final and got done in the final. Already played Man City and Man United this year and got Chelsea in the next round. So, no, I quite like that competition. I'm sure smaller clubs do as well. So I'd keep it.
Yeah. I've got a question from an Angus Fraser. What do you think about the fact that it looks like sin bins are coming in, and IFAB have approved it, and it might start? It's yet another one, isn't it? I can see you wincing there, grimacing as I ask you that question.
Is that the same guys that make the laws for the handball?
The IFAB, yeah.
Sin bins. Look, I know the world has to go forward, and I know we've got to change, and we've got to move into all of this new technology and everything else. But sometimes things don't have to be touched, because they work.
Yeah. I mean, they've already got punishments available. Yellow card, which you can upgrade to a red if players get verbal. I think it's going to be, maybe they're trying to stop that, but they've got those, they've got that power anyway, but they don't use it as often as they should, I think, if they're being verbally abused. I think they cited one example that would have been perfect for the sin bin, and they said, can you remember in the European Championship final at Wembley, England, Italy, and they used the argument when I think it was Saka going clear and Chiellini grabbed him and pulled him down, and they said that would have been a perfect time. They were talking about things like the little professional fouls, stuff like that, and you get 10 minutes in a sin bin. But does that not then make one team just go really negative and sit all behind the ball? And I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. There's no doubt about that's what they'll do. If they go down to 10 men, they would sit behind the ball for 10 minutes. No, I'm off the top of my head with just thinking about it and thinking that all goes with it. Then I'm happy with yellow and reds. You've got enough opportunity. If you're on a yellow, and you know that you run the risk of getting a red. But sin bins, off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
No. Colin Beam. Last question before we take the halftime break, and then I'll start again with Micah. This one's for Mr. Shearer.
Oh.
And he's got in brackets, Shearer. If you were playing during the Ashley era, would you have stayed at Newcastle or looked for an exit? Well, you managed under him, but I suppose with hindsight, you might make a difference.
Well, it depends. Decision. It depends, because if you remember, I think I'm right in saying Alan Pardew, when he was manager, got Newcastle up to 5th, I think it was. So, although the vast majority of it wasn't good, there were the odd good moments. But no, I wouldn't have liked to have been at a football club, even though it was Newcastle, that was going to be fighting relegation every single year. I know that during my time that we were in probably one year. But most of the time, or a lot of the time, then you're starting to challenge. And I mean, when Sir Bobby came in, when Kevin was there when I signed, and Kenny took over, getting to cup finals and etc. I think you've always got to have a little bit of hope that you can achieve something and do something. And I wouldn't have liked to have. No, I wouldn't have been in a relegation battle most seasons, and on the odd occasion being relegated. So probably not. No.
Well, I would say if you were playing Al, there's no way they'd have been in a relegation battle. But
that's a very good point, actually. I didn't think of that. I was waiting for you to come in and say that.
Well, there you go. I'm always here for you, Al. I've got your back. Let's take a break, and Alan, you take a longer break. Welcome back to The Rest is Football, and welcome to Micah Richards. Alan Shearer's disappeared into the sunset. And Micah, great to have you with us. How's it all going down there in the States? And may I say, your attire. Let me describe it. Obviously a T-shirt, but you have... what kind of hat would you call that?
Is it a fedora? Would you go fedora hat?
I think it might be, but
Yeah.
I have to say, you look $1 million and very Miami Vice.
No, of course, exactly. I got the shades on. I got the hat on as well. Absolutely loving it. I'm in Miami Beach. I'm here with CBS covering the Champions League. And what a place this is. I came here about 10 years ago, but it's evolved. So many new restaurants, so many good-looking people. The people
including yourself, may I say, on this occasion, Micah.
But it's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, how's the weather? I suppose it's beautiful, isn't it? We're here, and actually it's not too bad today. But...
Yeah, 26, 27 degrees with a cool breeze at the evenings. Excellent. Couldn't ask for anything more, Gary.
What a life you lead. Let's start asking a number of questions, starting with Mahad Farah. Great pod. Thanks, guys, and thank you. My question is, during your careers, what is the best game you played personally, but the team still lost? Thank you, guys. Keep up the good work.
Ooh, that is a very good question. You know, because there's so many. There's so many. You think you've had a good game, isn't there? And you think, oh, maybe I could have done this. Maybe I could have done that. But what about you, guys? Do you want to go first?
I think I'd probably go the semi-final of the World Cup against Germany. I think I had a decent day, scored a really good goal, scored my goal in the penalty shootout, but ultimately, and the team played great. We played really well against what was, massive favourites in Germany in that World Cup. They were so strong. And then the devastation of losing that particular game was hard. That was hard. You?
I would have to say one of the derbies they actually played well in. It was at the Etihad. We was down to 10 men. I think it was Vincent Kompany who got sent off, and I just became like this rock at the back. You know, when you see your captain, he needs someone to step up. Big Meek certainly stepped up. I was flying into challenges, marshalling the back line, organising, but we still lost. So yeah, I'd go with that game. I would go with that game.
I've got one for you here, Micah, specifically from Leo Manish. To Micah, can you tell us about Agüero? Oh. How was he in training as a person, and how often did you talk to him? I think that's possibly because his English is not great, was it? I interviewed him once, but I did it in Spanish.
Yeah, but this is the thing, Gary. Agüero was lying. When they was asking him to do interviews, he was saying... I don't speak English. He spoke brilliant English, he knew exactly what the slang terms were. He knew all the terminologies. Of course, speaking with your friends and having an interview is two different things, but he just played on that so much and he got away with it. Muggins like me, James Milner, Jolie Lesko, all the English lads had to do the media because Kun just basically said, I don't speak no English. As for a player...
If you say I don't speak no English, that actually means you do speak English. So perhaps he wasn't like...
Exactly.
Because there's double negative in there, Micah.
Exactly. But as a player, it was strange because obviously he'd come from Atletico Madrid. And we had a pre-season sort of, you know, when you go and have a pre-season tour and everyone was talking about him, Agüero, this, that and the other. The first day in training, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Agüero's here. He's going to show me something special. He's going to be the best player by far. I looked at him in training, I was like, what on God's earth have we signed here? His touch was baggy. He couldn't hold up the ball. His shooting was wayward. And then he made his debut. Oh my God. So I've never seen a player. It was similar to Tevez where not so great in training, but in the game, the flick a switch and they turn into something else and was one of the most incredible strikers I ever played with.
It's interesting you should say that, Micah, because I was a bit like that. I couldn't really. I needed to be motivated to perform, and I think a lot of strikers are like that. So training, all I ever wanted to do was practice finishing, and most of the time you don't actually do that. You're playing five-a-sides or working on shape and all this kind of stuff and possession and stuff, and it's boring. And I wonder if Tevez and Agüero were on similar lines. And I think Alan as well. I mean, he talks about he's rubbish at long distance running and all that, but I think strikers. I think we're a strange, curious, slightly selfish breed that are only really interested in knocking the ball in the back of the net. What about I think he means as well, though. What is he like as a fella? Good lad?
As a fella, he is what, and I feel like I say this a lot about my old teammates, like the Nigel de Jongs, Joleon Lescott, Milner, Joe Hart, Agüero, Tevez, Balotelli. Like, they were all Gareth Barry, all great people. And what I mean by that is not just what you do in training or the banter you have in training, it's what you do outside. So Agüero would always make effort to come to dinner. He likes a few drinks. He's no David Silva when it comes to putting it away, but he will have the odd drink. He likes his cars, but he was so humble. It was so strange because normally when you have a player who is top level, and the nice people, you can't sort of comprehend what's going on. You expect top players to be a little bit more arrogant, but he wasn't arrogant at all. He was almost just like too nice, which was strange to see. But yeah, I
think most, I don't know whether it's, I don't know why, but I think most footballers are relatively humble, however successful they are, aren't they? Because I think it comes down to the fact that it's a team thing. You've got, 15, 20. The minute you get above your station, you're going to get whacked down, aren't you, in the group? So I think by and large, most footballers don't big themselves up too much. I want to ask you a question, not from me.
Of course, yeah.
And it applies to me. How many players, and you move around in football and you go to different clubs, but how many players, and you're relatively newly retired, how many players do you actually really stay close friends with?
This is, a brilliant question, because you always say once you go your separate ways, keep in touch. You set up a group or whatnot, then technology develops and then someone gets a new phone, and then before you know it, you've not spoke to that person for 3 or 4 years. And this is why I love the punditry so much, because we sort of recreate the atmosphere that we had in the dressing room, and you become a lot closer to people. But the only person or people I speak to probably every other day is Joleon Lescott, James Milner, and Joe Hart every now and then. And I thought it would be the whole team. I was really close with Company and Nigel de Jong and Balotelli, but everyone goes their separate ways.
Yeah, you move on. I suppose it's like that in a lot of workplaces, particularly if you move around a little bit. There's usually, perhaps, I think from my time, I mean, there's no one I'm kind of see all the time now, but there's 2 or 3 players that I remain in contact
Who
with.
would be them players, Gary, before you
I would say probably I keep in touch with Mark Hughes over the years.
Okay, nice.
Who we played with in Barcelona. Peter Reid, I saw him for a drink recently, from Everton. Kept in touch with Trevor Stephen, also at Everton. Carrasco at Barcelona. Julio Alberto from Barcelona.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Gaza, I get the odd phone call at bizarre times every month or so. Bless him. So yeah, a few players, but it's funny in terms of being your close mates. It's not quite how it works, is it? Let's move on. Andy Warnock asks, if and when Southgate packs it in as England manager, who do you think should replace him? Perhaps it isn't a relation of Neil Warnock and he wants us to say Neil Warnock. Or Colin, as he's known by some people. Who do you think it should be? I mean, the talk's been, there's rumour mill, isn't it, about, Pep Guardiola, but I just can't envisage that happening, could you?
No, but we had this conversation.
I mean, it'd be amazing, but...
And we said, should the England manager be English? And I think I said, probably not. As long as you win, it doesn't matter. I would like to see Pep. I mean, if Pep could come in there with all this talent that we have, and I feel like it's a little bit disrespectful because a lot of people ask me about this as well, and we've been big fans of Southgate, and when we say things, it's all, Pep should be the new manager, Southgate's not good. That's not, Southgate has been brilliant, got to a final, got to a semi-final, but I just think in terms of elite coaches, if you could say, who would you want? I think Pep could just tweak us that little bit to get us over the line.
Well, Pep's a coaching genius, isn't he? There's no question about it. There's no question. Even last night's game, Micah, come in. I mean, you just know, even at half-time, you go, crikey, they're 2-0 down, and they've, made a couple of errors, and then they bounced back in the second half, and whatever he said and did at half-time worked. I mean, he would be an amazing appointment, but they might, if England win the Euros, and it's a big if, but it's not, they'll certainly be one of the favourites with the players that they've got. And he wins the trophy, then he might want to pop at the World Cup.
Ooh, it would be nice. It would be nice.
Yeah. But it's always the hope that kills you. So let's move on to the next question from Bakare Sheriff Dean. Wow. Hey guys, wonderful podcast. Thank you. What opposition player annoyed you most on the pitch?
Ooh, again, there's some great questions today, isn't there? I've said this before. I've said Drogba. I've said Dempsey. Iron Robin, not annoyed me in terms of what he said, but what he did with the ball, it wasn't stay still. There's so many, but I have to say Drogba. I have to say Drogba because he was so strong, he was so aggressive. You touch him and he goes down too easy. And I always tell him when I see him, it's like, that's the game. I'm playing the game, and he used to buy the fouls, get his big arms up, and then he would just wink at me and say, I got you this time. So I would have to say Drogba. What about you, guys?
I'm going to throw one in here. I only played against him a few times towards the end of my career, but my God, was he annoying. And now I work with him.
Ooh.
Can you guess?
That Keown.
Martin Keown, correct. Honestly, I love Martin to bits now, and he's a lovely guy, but my goodness me, playing against, he'd pinch you. He'd pinch you in your side and stuff honestly, and he'd be all over you, and he was aggressive, and he was slightly insecure and still is to a degree in a very nice way. And I mean, he works hard at his job at the time, but Lee Dixon always tells the story about I think they were playing a game and they were about 2 or 3 down after 20 minutes. and Martin, he said Dicko was on, he was playing right back, and Martin was doing, and he says, he kept shouting at me, Dicko. He said, so in the end I go, what? And he goes, but note they're 3-0 down, he goes, how am I doing?
It's mad though, Gary, because I worked with Keown, and everyone who's heard me speak, I grew up an Arsenal fan, and he was such a legend to me. So when I was working with us, I wouldn't say I was starstruck, but I was just amazed by his presence. And I worked with him on Match of the Day, and we've done our analysis. We've been in the room for 10, 12 hours. We've been in the room for 10, 12 hours. And we've got analysis. We know who's doing what and what. So just before we're about to go on air, he goes to me, who are you doing again? I'm like, mine, I've not got time to think about what you're thinking about. I need to think about what I'm doing. And he's one of a kind. He's one of the sweetest, loveliest, but he's also very intelligent as well. Very intelligent bloke. I love working with Keown. But
yeah, he's great. He's great fun. Do you know what? In terms of playing against him, and he was a nightmare, and he'd kick you and he'd pinch you and all these kind of things. But if you know that thing about the difference in someone's personality and character on the pitch to off it. I mean, he's absolutely chalk and cheese. But something must happen to him when he used to cross that white line. I've no idea what it was. I've got one here from a Jack Holmes. Now, if that's I know a Jack Holmes. My agent's John Holmes, and he's got a son called Jack, who's a big Leicester fan, so it could well be from him. I heard it referenced a few times now, and I don't think it's intentional, but Steve Parish mentioned it certainly when talking about people who think they can do your job. Do football people think fans are a pain in the arse, or is there general recognition of their worth in the game?
Be careful what you say here, Gary. Be careful what you say.
But there's an enormous recognition of their worth in the game, because without fans, without support, without the atmosphere that they generate, the sport wouldn't be anything like as good as it is. Particularly, I would say, probably in terms of this country and the Premier League, and the vitality inside the stadiums is extraordinary. And players feed off that, don't they? Now, obviously, fans, some fans know their football and some fans think they know the football and don't. And then other fans have no idea about the football, but they still enjoy going on as well. But I don't think footballers think derogatory towards the fans, unless you're getting a load from someone, I guess.
No, I think we love the fans without the fans. And that's why, if you look at home results, especially your home fans, it gives you that extra yard, the extra motivation to become the 12th person, that you feed off that energy. Of course, when it gets negative, it can be difficult. But what I've started to notice a little bit in punditry, so say a big decision's happened within a game, a lot of pundits now are going onto Twitter to see what the fans are saying and then saying what they think or what you think the fans want to hear,
Which pundits,
Gary, I can't. I'm not naming no names. So it's funny because a lot of pundits want to go with the fans' opinion, and I've been slaughtered a lot of times, but I try to be impartial. I try to be honest. I'll get loads of things wrong. Of course we do as pundits, but I think if you then start going down that way and trying to agree with everything, it's not going to help you in the long run, But yeah, it's mad the influence, and not just fans, and social media has on the way we're able to do our job,
I would agree. No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, and I think things have possibly changed a little bit with social media, because the amount of opinions you get before. You'd never get that when I started. You get, snail mail and stuff, things arriving in the post with a bit of green felt pen from somebody that gets a bit upset. And various other strange things that you get. Thankfully now that kind of the mail thing has disappeared almost, which is good, because you'd open envelopes back in the day with a degree of nervousness. I remember this is a bit gross, but I used to get sackfuls of mail when I was after my career and stuff, like the early days of TV, etc. And I used to get one letter every week, and I'd open it and it would be toilet paper with what you might think would be on it. Yeah, and I don't think it was anything to do with my Italia 90 accident, but every single month, and it was like so gross. And it had this, and in the end, I could work it out from the postmark, like it was from Bath, and it was always the same ever. Someone in Bath who obviously didn't take enough baths. And it honestly, it was disgusting. In the end, I knew which one it was and threw it away. So yeah, at least you can talk on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, but you can't send it. And on that note, we'll wipe our arses and move on. What you got for the rest of the day, Micah?
We've got the
Champions.
Champions.
Make me feel sick.
Yeah, we've got the Champions League. but it's sort of like an event, so it's not just a usual Champions League. We get there a couple hours early, we get to integrate with the fans, have a few beers. There's a couple of light entertainment things as well. And I met, I don't know if you're an NFL fan, but I'm sure H, the producer, is. Tyreek Hill, he plays for Miami Dolphins.
He's nodding his head. He's nodding his head.
Yes, wide receiver. And we did a segment on, and you know how footballers get paid a lot of money. He signed a deal for $140 million. And then we interviewed him.
Is that the cheater you're talking about?
The cheater, that's the one, Gary! The cheater.
And if you think I came up with that, you're completely wrong.
It's called the cheater, that's it. But it's weird how, because the difference between, say, broadcasting in England and broadcasting in America, I would never come on. We do it on podcast and elaborate a little bit about the details, but I would never come on BBC and talk about how much money I earn. He was just there talking about, I deserve it, you know. I'm one of the best in the league.
It's America. It's America. They think things differently about me. I mean, obviously they pay way much more money, and it's the American dream, isn't it? Anyone can do it. And
wow.
When you're wealthy here, you tend to get like whacked for it. Over there, they actually give you a pat on the back. So it's a different philosophy.
That's amazing. And then hopefully we've got another guest, which they've not told us yet. Apparently, again, big in Miami. So, yeah, looking forward to today.
Oh, give my regards to Lionel Messi.
Oh, baby.
Great stuff, Micah. Enjoy it. You'll be back. You'll be back after that, won't you?
Yeah, I'm flying back. I'm flying back tonight, and my road trip of 2023 is now finished. I'm home now for the foreseeable.
Great. Well, bring that hat home. Are you going to wear it on the show?
Of course I'm wearing it on the show. I wore another one yesterday's show, a new one today. So all good.
Suits you, sir. Suits you. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Well, that's it from this week's slightly unusual Q&A, and thanks very much for the questions that you keep sending in. They were great as always. Micah, have fun. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me, and thank you.